Hey everyone, been it's just been asked by some of the guys in the Discord to chuck through an emergency update as such. Um, just I thought I'd dedicate this one to Marty because we really did know this was coming, and it's a kind of cool give. So there we go. So basically, if you watch the last couple of days with the videos, the charts were just looking absolutely nasty. And if we didn't get a pump and close at a higher level over the weekend, we were going to most likely have a pretty nasty pullback. So it's come on pretty quick. So we smacked down. We actually dived right through that 112800 level. I don't think Sol is finished yet. There is support here and it could bounce here, but just looking at some of the things I've looked at, I don't think this is it. But we kind of need to know, we kind of need to see whether the daily holds up. So far the 4 hours have been closing badly, the 8 hours been closing badly. Nothing's retesting break levels. Basically, they're just pushing the price down, closing it under trend, and dumping further. So um, looks a bit like they're going to maybe just hold here for a little bit and then have a stage 2 dump. I'd like to see Sol get back over 225, and at least then it would sort of be putting in some kind of lower time frame structure. But at the moment, this is what I see. So on the Sol BTC chart, first thing is we've closed under trend. We don't actually break anything until we close the day, which is kind of why it's important to see how this ends tomorrow. But we have 15 hours to go, and that's why it's always a little bit hard to make a call at this point when they do it like this, which is bring the price down, put it under a key level, and then dump immediately in the open of the new candle. It means things like weekly structure could just keep on diving for another 6 days before it goes back up, and daily structure would be the one really to look at to see whether or not we actually get back above these trends. If we don't get above these trends, then just expect to see more and more pain to the downside. If we do pull back up into these hold levels and break levels, then great. It's going to at least try to make an uptrend. But as I said, well, today actually in the video, if you're making hold levels, that's one thing. If you're making ranges, that's another. But unless you're testing hold levels and hitting break levels, you're not reversing. So there's absolutely nothing on that chart right now that says that this is getting any better. You could knife catch and buy here. You could definitely, argue that it's going to end up going up above this at some point, so that's all good. Are you buying the bottom? Maybe, maybe not. You just don't know until you see some kind of decent reversal. So looking at that weekly chart, it did exactly the same thing on the weekly. It created the new trend, opened on the wrong side of the trend, and just dumped. Now, it has, of course, found support on things like the range trend. And could this bounce from here? Yes, it could. Could this be the best entry you're going to see for the next leg up? 100%. It could be. Where would it target? Well, it's going to be targeting up into here. You could magically see Sol get really strong, but there's nothing to say that it does that. It could also just stay here. It could go down even for the rest of the week. Pretty much, it's not exactly like there is support here, but it's not really the type of support that is guaranteed to hold this price. And that's because when you look at the monthly is still in a trend rejection, and the monthly hasn't landed on any support capable of actually stopping a monthly downtrend. So, Sol, I would expect to still continuously be weak against Bitcoin until it probably hits at least this 1800 level. Any kind of reversal before that just doesn't make a lot of sense given that it's rejecting on a monthly scale. So looking at the safety assets, they've just shot through all their break levels. Could we get a bit of a pullback in this? Definitely. It would be good to see this continue to come down and close under the daily break. That might actually mean that we see a pullback in the safety assets and you might get a little bit of a pump up in the altcoins. But until it closes in 15 hours, you don't really know where this candle's going to close. Could it go up here and close above 65.2 2%? Yeah, it could. And if it does that, it's probably going to come all the way back up here and retest the weekly break level, and that's going to mean even further dump for alts. So it is positive to see this pulling down, but and it's positive that it's come through this trend, and in theory, it's going to come all the way back to this trend, and that would mean that okay, maybe alts are going to get a little bit of a pump. But unless it actually gets under these trends and starts rejecting, you have to look at this and go, well, it's hitting break levels. What does that mean? It means that it's trying to reverse. And if it's trying to reverse, alts are going to keep on dumping. So that's pretty much what that's showing us. And if we look at that on the weekly, it's come up here. It's hit the weekly trend. So once again, it's positive as long as it keeps pulling back off this trend and maybe comes down to test the range trend down here, and that means, hey, you've got an upwards run that you'll get in your alts, but there's nothing really saying that this couldn't just go up more for another 6 days. At some point, it's going to come up here and test these 66.18 levels. So, is that now? It could be. It is potentially creating like an origin level out of the structure that you see here as well. So, even if it was to close the week like this, pull back down and hit the 63 level, it could then pump up to a new high off that, because it's effectively will be creating an origin level if it closes up in accumulation for the week. So yeah, she's looking pretty bearish, and I don't know whether this pullback is going to be over. So if we look at that from a monthly perspective, the monthly is in a trend dive. So as we get closer to the end of the month, which is 8 days, it's natural for it to be pulling up. So this is all confluent with, we might see further downside to altcoins. If we look at the daily, so this is totals on the daily, they've landed into trend support. They've dived through a couple trends. They've gone through break levels, so on the daily, we're really looking to see this come back up into this range, and if it doesn't, if it closes down here, on the day, then it's probably going to come back up here, and there's a very high likelihood then it rejects off the bottom of that to try and break the trends and continue further down. So that could indicate, once again, just an entire market of risk assets that just wants to go further down. And if we look at that from the other direction, it's created a hold level, it created a trend, it opened on the wrong side of the trend, it didn't actually even go to the hold level, it just rejected straight off the back side of the trend and just took an absolute dive. So this has gone through, it's gone through break levels here. So if this is going to get bullish, this needs to be retracing back up above this 3.67 before the end of the day. If it doesn't get back up into that range, then that range becomes resistance, another potential rejection, another level down. Now that it's already tested this trend down here, the chances of it holding is lower, and then it's going to want to head down to this hold level down here, which is down at the 3.52 area. So that could be, once again, just setting up for another leg down. Even if it does pull up, it has to get back inside this range. If it doesn't, it's just a fake sort of rally to the upside to bring in more longs before a further dump down. So looking at that on the weekly, it's come back down. It's retested this trend that was running through here. So this trend has been hard closed, and then the price basically has rejected off the top side trend. It's come down, opened the new week under, come down, hit that for support. Could it hold it? Yes. Could it be the best entry you're going to get on the weekly scale? And might we go back up now and break this 3.78 level and continue up to the moon? Totally possible. I think what I mentioned on the show today, it's not really a show, but on the video today, is that we were creating this wedge between these two range trends, and we closed right there on the edge of that, which meant the candle basically opened and dumped. So the two scenarios here is that this is a deviation of the range trend, and somewhere in the next 6 days and 16 hours, this goes back up, gets back up above, and you get your breakout to the top. And that just means that this was the liquidity sweep, the final liquidity sweep before you get a big pump. But the other scenario is it doesn't go back up. and you got to be prepared for that, because if it doesn't go back up, you might as well call the bear market, because this kind of rejection, if it becomes a sustained rejection, it will just keep dumping. So we have a break level down here at 3.41T. And so if we hit that, it's very bearish. There's another sort of one there at 3.4. So if it hits those levels, this is super bearish. If it can push back up in the next 6 days, get back up over the top side origin level there, then it will break out off that level and it will go into price discovery. Because the thing about this level here now is that if it closes like this, that is a breakout level. If it recaptures that level, it's a weekly origin. It's no different to sort of like that what that 108,350 level was on Bitcoin, which once it captured that level, it was just rocket ship up. So you've got to be open to the idea that basically this could be it. You've also got to be open to the idea that this could be the best entry you see, and then once you get over there, maybe we moon. Looking at Bitcoin, same thing. It created this interior trend today, opened on the wrong side of the trend, and just absolutely dumped. So this has gone through a range trend on the daily. You would expect that to retrace, which could mean you get a pull back up into that 113, maybe that 114 area on BTC. It hasn't actually hit the hold level either down here, which is a little bit tricky. I don't like that overall, because as you can see, it's just hovering on the fence of the next trend. So if it doesn't go back up today and it closes and opens the next candle here, then the rejection just becomes this very small area of $500, and it could just hit that hold level, break that hold level, keep going down. So if it does go back up and gets back into this range, that's actually quite bullish. It means it'll go back up here and test this 115,578 level. So really it's a case of, does it go back up? Does it not go back up? That's on the daily. A lot of these other levels have now had their retests. So, because of the way it opened on the wrong side of the trends, it just dumped, it's gone down and retested a lot of these hard close levels. So it's good to get that stuff out of the way. So again, this was one of the absolute prime dumpy ones. They brought it down just below that 115,300 level, just on close. And as you can see, it just went straight into it, and then it just plummeted down to the trend down here. So that that has covered off quite a bit of the dump that we should have had. What should that trend do now? Well, ideally it pulls back up into the broader range, and then bounces off that. The hold level's been tested, so the bullish side of it is that if it can hold this trend, it will come back up here and test the break, and that's back in that 117 area. So we can go up from here, or it can spend 3 days down here, close on the wrong side of that trend, and just go again. So it's pretty good risk reward place really to be buying, but at the same time you've got to be open to the fact you may not win. Range trend. We've dived the range trend here on the 4-day. We've landed on that range retest. So as I mentioned on the video, we hard closed the range up here. It would make sense for this thing to dump down here and retest the bottom of the range. So it's done that. So now really it comes down to 3 days and 16 hours. Where do we close? If we close under the line, we'll dump further. If we close above the line, we'll fight between here and the range trend. If we get above the range trend, we'll go back to the hold. So time, that's all that's really telling us. So 6 days landed on major support. It hasn't hit its hold level. I think this is indicative of good old New York fake out probably coming. Maybe we get some kind of little relief, and then everyone longs, and then New York dumps it down to these hold levels, and then maybe we get the proper bounce from there. That would be bullish. But at this stage, the trend is what's supporting it, not the hold levels. Hold levels are much stronger than trends, so realistically, and it's not the first time this trend's been hit. So realistically, I'd be expecting more downside on this, even if it's just a little bit of a go up first, get people drawn in, dump down. You just got to remember, the sentiment plays such a big part of this. And if you think about what Twitter's been like the last, or what Discords have been like the last few days. You know, we've had people posting things about how we're in alt season and it's all up, and you know everything's going to the moon, and by now it's going to $1,000, and yet the entire time the charts just looked crap. And you know, if you were deaf and blind to what was going on in the media, all you would have said is this chart looks crap. And now you can see what happens. So need that Marty gif again. All right, so this is the one that I'd probably think is most likely to play out. It's a proper 2-range 11-day level. We've hit the hold. I mean, granted, it could take 11 days for it to play out, but this should take us back up to that 116 level. And this is kind of your get out of jail card. Even if it does close, if we have a really bad pullback and let's say we go into the bear market, at a minimum, these trends should send it back to this 113,899 level after 11 days of absolute nightmare downside. So that could be, you know, a retrace if we just continue to dump. But that's kind of why the risk reward and actually entering a position here is not that bad. As long as you don't get liquidated, you should always be able to come back up to this, because there's just too much trend support here for it not to come back up to that level at some point. And really, if it comes back up quick enough, it should be coming back up to this higher level up here. So it's not too bad. And then this is pretty much the same move, but we haven't. So what happened here? Basically, we created a range trend. We rejected on the range trend. We dumped the hold. So this is just all stuff from the video today, really. Then some of these bigger ones, they haven't actually hit their rejections yet, which is sort of why I think it might not be over, or at least they might take a second swipe at people who tried along. Just, you know, one like this where we created the range trend, the rejection level is probably more like 115,800, and that's got that confluence with, you know, where we might go back up to based on some of those other levels. So yeah, this could go up and then dump down again. And it is one where we haven't retested the 107 level, so I won't go too much further with this, because you know a lot of the deeper levels from here sort of range from 107, 102, 95, you know, etc. And they may be bear market levels, because we might have found enough support. You know, levels like this, as an example, this rejection from the 18-week trend here. You know, this does have a 94, you know, K level, and we could be going there. But I think we've probably found enough support to have some form of rally at least before that kind of thing happens. So yeah, let's have a quick look at Sol. So Sol has just absolutely plummeted. It's gone straight through the break level. It's done all those retests, which is kind of what we wanted. We wanted to see it come down here and hit these 217 levels, because now it has retested the hard close break level. So this kind of stuff's pretty positive. We still have a couple of levels down here at 210, which are not hard closed. We have lost the uptrend. I think we actually lost that uptrend previously. It was that day. So, you know, we haven't tested the hold level at 238, and we haven't gone to the hold level at 203. So as long as we don't keep breaking trends to the downside, it'll probably come back up and test that 238 level, and that's reasonable that it could do that within the day. It is possible. Now, if we don't get back above 231.193 for the day, then it's probably going to reject off the backside of the range. That could then dump it all the way down to, you know, the backside of, say, this range around 212, which could send it back to the front side, which could actually, you know, that gets you to that 238 level, which could get you to the 203 level. So we could ping pong in this area, which is another possibility. And that could be over a few days before eventually the weekly takes over. And if we, skipping through just some of these quickly, as you can see, most of them have done retests, broken trends, or hit trends. There's lots of time to go on these candles, but the heading down to this hold level at 210 makes perfect sense. It's really just a case of, do we go up first? The actual resistance structure on Sol isn't as bad until you get to a potential big weekly problem. So this is the weekly on Sol. This trend coming through here is the bull market trend. I also call it the Trump trend because basically all of these events are to relate to tweets for some reason that he sends, but we do not want to close the week under this. So it's got 6 days, 16 hours to go. We want to finish the week above that trend, so say around 227, 228. We really want to be up there. At a lower time frame, the thing that is a little bit concerning is when this dump actually kicked off, the first stage was to dump this candle here down, get straight under that trend, and then stage 2 was an immediate 1 hour candle rejection off the backside of that trend and down. And that was the big sudden move that caught a lot of people by surprise. So now we're basically forming structure. If we can reverse here, which it means we've got to break trends, and even if we look at, say, some of the lower time frames, we're still just trending down. So that's still just a downtrend. Unless you see the price get up over, what's that, 222.974. This is all 15-minute stuff, and then you got to get up over 223.943, and then you got to get up over 224. So basically, you just got to get through all these break levels, and you've got to start forming an uptrend. Otherwise, you're never going to get back above that weekly trend. And the sooner we get above that, the better, because that is the one trend that actually could send this thing to, new highs or all-time highs. So it's the one you don't want to lose, and it's the one that you don't really want to stay under it for too long. Watching just other things like the 4-hour, we've created some range trends down here. So we may use these range trends for that second dip. So, we've closed under the break level, which is 225 on the 4-hour. We've got a trend running through here, which has given us a bit of support. We've created this range trend down here on the 4-hour. So really it now comes down to, does it go up and reject off this break level at 225, which it could do. Because it's not hard closed yet, it could pass through that break level. It could even pass through this next one, which is up here at 229. And technically it can get all the way back up to the backside of that trend because it opened on that trend, and that's about 232. And then from there you've got other break levels. I don't think any of these are hard closed, not until you get to this one, funnily enough, at 238. So the upside scope for this would be to, I guess, bounce around here for a little bit, get a whole bunch of people to capitulate, and then possibly go all the way back up to 238. And if it's going to do it, what it has to do is it has to stay as a series of accumulation candles. It doesn't have to do it in the next 3 hours, but it needs to do it without closing one of these 4 hours as a blue candle. The moment it closes one as a blue candle, you get other hard closed break levels, which become potential retest and rejection levels. So looking at the liquidity chart for Sol, you can draw pretty much a line across here and just say anything above that sort of 225 area sort of becomes a low time frame higher high. And then if it can bounce off the top of that and then start coming up into this is all the people that have chased the short, really. So, and we do have, this newer liquidity up here for, where people have taken the short. Could it come back up to there? Yes. But, you've got to be aware that, look at all this, we've still got plenty down here. And it doesn't appear like a lot of new leverage is coming into the downside. So I think people must be flipping a bit bearish, but Yeah. So those are the things I'm looking at. As far as positions go, I've opened a small position here. I'll add on it if we go down to 214 because 214, 213 is the start of the high time frame structure that I mentioned. So these are all your high time frame levels from like these are all hold levels. This one down here is the biggest one on the chart at 18 week hold level at 213. It's a bit tricky because a lot of the and then of course you've got things like 189. It's a bit tricky with the exchanges because the dump happens so fast that TradingView versus the local exchanges and one exchange versus another exchange, some of those levels got hit on different exchanges. So as to whether that means that this is now the best entry you're ever going to see and it goes up from here, or this is just going to be a bit of a fake out, maybe a bit of a push and then another dump. It's pretty hard to tell. Been doing this a long time and I don't, even I actually don't really know whether this is going to be the bottom. So all you can do is not be greedy. If you want to open along, but just be prepared that if we lose that weekly Trump trend, then the first usable weekly hold level is 153. Will it go there in a straight line? Well, probably not. Will it bounce around a bit? Will there be other options to average your position and get in and out of things? Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's just going to be one candle straight down to 153. That's pretty hard to imagine ever happening. But yeah, hey, in 6 days' time, if we're still under that trend, don't be surprised is pretty much what I'm saying. And if 6 days' time we're over that trend, then don't be surprised if we travel off to probably two. This is just a very simplified chart of it. Don't be surprised if we travel off to 265, 270-ish area to hit the backside of this range trend that's not been retested yet. And then past that, we really are in one hell of a big channel, which means that this could be just simply a deviation of that. And, when there's people out there saying 1,000, maybe if we get to 500, it's possible. So, yeah, there's your quick update. Just to reiterate, we did see this coming. And, geez, I hope you didn't get liquidated. All right, catch you later. Bye.